Sounds like I said I didn't.
That, again, was not true. You just had shot someone, correct?
I did.
Why didn't you tell the truth?
I was being chased by a mob, and I don't really remember that interaction very well.
Let's play Exhibit 5, please. This is the BG on the scene video. Go ahead. Pause. Now, we've heard a lot of testimony about this person who comes up behind you with something and hits you in the head. We've heard about Anthony Huber's first approach to you with his skateboard, correct?
Yes.
You testified that after a few more feet you felt lightheaded and you stumbled. That's what you told when your attorney was asking you questions, correct?
Yes.
No one knocked you to the ground. You lost your own balance, correct?
I was hit to the point to where I stumbled.
You said in response to your attorney's questions that you stumbled because you were lightheaded. Do you remember telling us that?
From getting hit, yes.
You were lightheaded because you had been running and you were being chased. That was why you were lightheaded, right?
That and being hit, yes.
Let's continue. Pause. There is an individual who comes at you and jumps towards you and attempts to kick you, correct?
He does kick me, yes.
And you fire 2 shots directly at him with your AR-15, correct?
Yes.
You intended to hit him with those bullets, correct?
I intended for him, yes.
At that close range, it's a miracle that you missed, right?
I don't know.
You intended to kill him with those shots, didn't you?
No.
Did you even care whether or not those 2 rounds were going to kill him?
I didn't want to have to kill anybody that night.
In this moment, you're making a deliberate decision to pull the trigger twice, correct?
Yes.
That wasn't an accident. That was your conscious decision, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you're firing an AR-15 at close range to this individual, correct?
Yes.
And you knew full well that if you hit him with 1 or both of those bullets, it could kill him, right?
There's that possibility.
If you hit him with one of those, wouldn't you agree it's a pretty strong likelihood you're going to kill him?
I don't know if...
Did that even factor into your mind at that point? Did you even care whether you were going to kill him or not?
I didn't want to have to kill anybody. I was being attacked. That's why I shot him. Shot at him.
You shot at him with the intent of hitting him and killing him, correct?
I didn't want to kill anybody.
Then why are you shooting at someone with an AR-15 at close range if you don't want to kill him?
Because he's attacking me. And he's stomping my face in. Jumping and kicking my face in.
That you didn't see any weapons on that person, did you?
No.
You didn't see a gun?
No.
You didn't see a knife?
No.
You didn't see a bat or a club?
No.
You didn't see a chain?
No.
All he uses is 1 foot, correct?
Yes.
Let's continue the video. Pause. You've just shot a round into Anthony Huber's chest, right?
Yes.
Now, up until this moment, and probably for the rest of that evening, you didn't know the name Anthony Huber, did you?
I did not.
Up until this moment in this evening, you had never had any interaction with him, took any notice of him, fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And when you shoot him, he's got his skateboard in his hand?
Yes.
You didn't see any gun in his hand, correct?
No.
You didn't see a knife?
No.
You didn't see a bat?
No.
You didn't see a club?
No.
All he's got is the skateboard, right?
That he's hit me in the head with twice, yes.
Okay. And you intended to pull the trigger at that moment with your AR-15, correct?
Yes.
That wasn't an accident.
No.
That was your deliberate decision, correct?
Yes.
And you knew that the way that gun was positioned, you were going to fire that bullet right into his chest, right?
He was attacking me, so I pulled the trigger.
And you knew that when you pulled that trigger, that bullet was going to go right into his chest, didn't you?
I can't say, I don't know where the bullet would have went exactly.
The end of that gun was pointed directly at his chest when you pulled the trigger, correct?
Yes.
And you knew that, correct?
Yes.
And you still pulled the trigger, didn't you?
Yes.
Because you intended to kill Anthony Huber at that moment, didn't you?
No.
What did you think was going to happen then? You got a gun that's aimed directly at his chest, you pull the trigger. What did you think was going to happen?
If I didn't pull the trigger, I thought Mr. Huber was going to kill me.
Maybe I misphrased my question. Let me try again. When you pull the trigger of the AR-15 and it is directly against Anthony Huber's chest, what did you think was going to happen to Anthony Huber?
That he would no longer be a threat to my safety.
Because he'd be dead, right?
Because he wouldn't be a threat to me. I don't know if he'd be dead or not.
Did you even care at that moment whether or not Anthony Huber lived and died?
Yes.
Your only concern in that moment was your own safety, correct?
Yes.
The next shooting is of Gage Grosskreutz. We have stopped the video at a moment here when he is crouched in front of you with his hands in the air, correct?
Yes.
Your gun is pointed at him, isn't it?
It's pointed downward towards his feet.
It's pointed at his body, some part of his body, correct?
Yes.
And he's no threat to you at this moment, is he?
Objection, Your Honor. He's standing in front of him with a gun.
That's an argument you can make. I'm asking a question of the witness.
You can answer the question.
Yes.
He's no threat to you at this moment, is he?
He is a threat. He has a gun in his hand.
You saw that gun.
Yes.
So at the moment, throughout all of these moments of your interaction with Mr. Grosskreutz, you were aware of the fact that he had that gun in his hand, correct?
Not until that moment.
I'm talking about from this moment on, correct?
Yes.
And of course, that's a handgun, right?
Yes.
And you have an AR-15, correct?
Yes.
And at this particular moment, he's not pointing his gun at you, is he?
Not at that moment.
But you've got your gun pointed at him, correct?
Looking at the video, I think I'm lowering my weapon. I think it's just a still shot of where you have it to where that, but I believe in the whole video I'm lowering it and then he points his gun at me.
Can you help me understand, Mr. Rittenhouse, why Gage Grosskreutz, with a pistol in his hand, is a threat to kill you, but you, with an AR-15 pointed at him, is not a threat to kill him at this moment? Can you help me understand that?
I've been attacked by several people and he decided to come and point a gun at my head. Well, first,
He hasn't done that yet, has he?
no.
So again, I ask you, in this moment, you told us Gage Grosskreutz is a threat to you right now.
Yes.
He's got a pistol not aimed at you. You've got an AR-15 aimed at him. Why is he more of a threat to you than you are to him?
Because he was moving at me with a gun in his hand.
This is right after you've killed Anthony Huber, correct?
Yes.
Right after you fired 2 shots at almost point-blank range at the man running towards the camera right now and missing him, correct?
Yes.
And you're telling us Gage Grosskreutz is the real threat at this moment?
Yes.
Can we please pull up exhibit number 80, beginning at frame 468? This is an exhibit which consists of, what's the number, 732? 729 frames from the BG On The Go video that we just watched. This was prepared by James Armstrong of the State Crime Lab. I'm not going to show all 729, but I'd like to start at frame 468. And we're going to go frame by frame from there until frame 500. Mr. Stute, could you please slowly advance frame by frame until I tell you to stop? Mr. Rittenhouse, this is immediately after Gage Grosskreutz has stopped in front of you and you are doing something with your firearm at that moment. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You were asked some questions about what you were doing at that moment. Is it fair to say that you turn your firearm over and you're looking at it, you're examining it?
Yes.
But your testimony is you didn't do anything to actually manipulate it at that moment.
Correct.
Is that fair to say?
Correct.
Okay. Please continue. Frame 500 shows you firing your AR-15 towards Gage Grosskreutz. At this particular moment, he does not have that pistol pointed towards you, does he?
He does.
His left leg has stepped across not directly towards you, but to the side of you, correct?
Yes.
He's reaching in with his left arm towards you, correct?
Yes.
He never steps back and puts the gun in both hands in a ready aim position towards you, does he?
He doesn't do that.
He never takes that gun with his right hand and stands there and holds it out with his right hand in front of him and aims it directly at you, does he?
No, he does this pointing it directly at my head.
And you thought that's the way he was going to shoot you?
Yeah.
You thought he ran up close to you to shoot you?
Yes.
You understand that he could have taken that gun if he wanted to and shot you from 10, 15, 20 feet away, right?
Can you rephrase? Sorry, I'm trying to understand the question.
You understand that a pistol like that doesn't need to be right up close to someone to shoot, right?
Yes.
It can shoot from 10, 15, 20 feet away, right?
Yes.
Mr. Grosskreutz could have stopped 10, 15, 20 feet away if he wanted to shoot you and fired his pistol at you, couldn't he have?
He could have, but he didn't.
And your testimony is that you believed he ran up close to you and reached in with his left hand with his gun in his right hand because that was his way of using this gun to shoot you?
Yes.
Did you think he was reaching in to grab your gun?
No.
You didn't think he was going to take your gun away, did you?
I thought he was going to shoot me.
With his pistol,
Yes.
which he never actually does. Correct?
Correct.
He never fires that gun at you at all.
No.
In fact, in this entire sequence of events, no one ever fired a gun at you, did they?
Mr. Zeminski fired a gun from behind me.
Did Mr. Zeminski fire that gun at you?
I believe so.
What do you base that on? Did you see it?
The video.
Did you see it?
No.
You're talking about back when the incident with Mr. Rosenbaum happens, correct?
Yes.
That happened while you and Mr. Rosenbaum are running across the car source lot, correct?
Yes.
At that moment in time, You didn't see Joshua Zeminski fire a shot, did you?
No.
You heard a gunshot, right?
Yes.
But you had no idea who fired it.
I believed it was Mr. Zeminski.
So that gunshot did not at all factor into your decision to kill Joseph Rosenbaum, did it?
No, Mr. Rosenbaum trying to steal my gun did.
So you didn't think that was a gunshot from Joseph Rosenbaum?
No.
You knew he didn't have a gun?
Wait a minute.
Oh, I see what your question is now, okay. You didn't think that the shot which had been fired supposedly by Mr. Zeminski had been fired by Mr. Rosenbaum?
Exactly.
Okay.
So you heard a gunshot. You now know that was Joshua Zeminski based on watching the videos, right?
Yes.
But at the time, you didn't think that was Joseph Rosenbaum firing that shot, did you?
No.
You knew Joseph Rosenbaum didn't have a gun, right?
Yes.
And you certainly would agree with me that you don't have the right to kill Joseph Rosenbaum for something Joshua Zeminski does, correct?
Yes.
When you heard that gunshot, you didn't know whether it was fired at you or up in the air or at Rosenbaum or anyone else, did you?
I heard it from behind me, but I didn't.
You didn't know where it was aimed,
Correct.
correct? You didn't feel it hit you, correct?
Correct.
You didn't hear it ricochet anywhere near you, correct?
Correct.
You received no indication that that gunshot was going to put your life in danger, correct?
I don't know.
There were gunshots going off all night long, weren't there?
Sorta.
Firecrackers,
Fireworks,
gunshots?
yeah.
Hard to tell the difference?
Yeah.
Right after you kill Rosenbaum, there's 3 shots right after that, aren't there?
Yes.
From very close to where you were.
Yes.
Yet you don't turn and shoot anybody there after you hear those, did you?
No.
So, getting back to my original question. In this entire sequence of events, no one ever fired a shot at you, did they?
No.
After you kill Anthony Huber, shoot Gage Grosskreutz, and attempt to fire those 2 shots at the person who jumped at you, you got up and you walked away, didn't you?
Yes.
And you're about, what, a block away from the police line?
Yes.
And you know that police line's there because you're running towards it.
Yes.
And there's really nothing in the road between you and that police line, is there? After the shooting? Everybody
No.
scatters?
No, nothing in the road.
So you have a clear line of sight from where you did those shootings to those law enforcement vehicles, correct?
Yes.
And you still have your AR-15,
Yes.
and the crowd is pretty much run after they hear the shots, right?
Yes.
You still have your medic bag,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
You never once offer to help anybody that you just shot, correct?
I don't.
Correct, you don't?
Correct.
Anthony Huber is lying there over on the ground after you shot him once in the chest, correct?
Yes.
You didn't know at that point whether he was alive or dead, did you?
I didn't.
You never went over to check, did you?
No.
You didn't know whether it was possible to save his life at that moment or not, did you?
I didn't.
And you didn't even care. You just kept on walking. Correct?
I kept walking to get to the police line.
Gage Grosskreutz, right after you shoot him in the arm, is yelling, "I need a medic." Did you hear that?
Yes.
That's in the videos, isn't it?
Yes.
You don't do anything to help him, do you?
No.
You just decide to get out of there as fast as you can. Correct?
Yes.
If you had seen someone running up the street with a gun and the crowd was saying that that person just shot someone, like they were saying about you, you would have taken action to stop them yourself, wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't have.
You're running around putting out fires, aren't you?
Yes.
A shooting's far more serious than a fire, isn't it?
Yes.
You took it upon yourself to do the things that the police and the fire departments weren't doing that night, correct?
I helped put out fires, but I wouldn't say that.
You went around offering medical service because you didn't think there were EMTs or EMS that would be able to come in there, correct?
Yes.
So you took it upon yourself to do the things that you didn't think the police or fire could do, correct?
I wouldn't say I took it upon myself, but I was helping people with first aid and putting out fires at businesses.
So if you saw someone running with a gun and everybody said, that guy just shot someone, you would have taken your AR-15 and tried to stop him, wouldn't you?
What's the relevance of this, Mr. Mayor?
It goes to the crowd's reaction to him, Your Honor. I think you would have reacted the same way.
Mr. Rittenhouse is on trial. The crowd is important in terms of it's a factor that bears on some of the counts as to what the surroundings were. Otherwise, the crowd is unimportant, and what he might have done vis-a-vis the crowd is, I don't see where we're going.
Understood. When you got back to that police line and what'd you say, they pepper sprayed you?
I believe so, but I don't remember it.
They told you to get out of the road
Yes.
because they were going in there
Yes.
to do what you hadn't done, which is to try and help the people that you just shot, right?
Yes.
And then you went back after that to the 59th Street car source, didn't you?
Yes.
And you told them that you just shot someone.
Yes.
Someone, meaning an individual person, correct?
I wasn't meaning individual. I was saying I just shot someone. I just shot someone.
You were told by Nick Smith that the police were coming to your location, to the 59th Street car source, right?
I don't recall that.
And yet, you decided to flee, didn't you?
No.
You didn't stick around for the police, did you?
I went to go turn myself into the Antioch Police Department
A couple of hours later.
an hour.
Actually, it wasn't a couple hours. He knows what time it was.
I'm asking the witness if the witness can answer.
Go ahead, you can answer, sir.
It was a couple of hours later, wasn't it?
No.
And in between leaving that location in downtown Kenosha and getting to Antioch, you were looking at social media, weren't you?
No, I wasn't. My phone was dead.
You had heard from other people that your name was out there, right?
Later on in the evening, I believe I heard something, but no.
You knew that your picture was out there, right?
No.
You're telling me, as you sit here under oath, that after those shootings, between then and the time you turned yourself into the Antioch Police Department, you had no idea that there was social media out there with your picture and your name as the shooter?
I'm trying to recall, but I can't. I'm trying to remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember.
I have no further questions.
I have nothing on that, Your Honor.
You may step down, sir.
Your Honor, I have a witness. But before that, call that witness. I need to use the men's room.
About a 5 to 10 minute break. Please don't talk about the case during the break. You may either use the jury room or you may remain down here in the library.
All right, we have been watching the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, and it's been riveting the entire day. You're watching The Five, and great to have everybody here. Judge Janine, Geraldo, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. Let's go to the judge and get your take.
Well, I was just checking how long after the two murders and the one assault or attempted murder, the charges were filed. Because this video, the drone, and all of the other information that's been brought together took a while to put together. But this DA charged Rittenhouse within 48 hours. So the DA never really looked into whether or not there was a possibility of self-defense. He just immediately indicted him. And what you're seeing today is a DA who was reacting to the whole scenario of what we were doing in a post-George Floyd world, in an area where Jacob Blake had just been shot. You've got a young guy who was a new CPR. He was a police explorer. He was some kind of fireman cadet. He was a good kid. He went there to clean up the graffiti on the buildings. He has exemplified on that witness stand what every defendant should learn to do, and that is to speak clearly, directly. He stops exactly where he should stop. He doesn't add any further information. He listens exquisitely to the questions, and there isn't even a need on the part of the defense attorney to object to this prosecutor who is so desperate, so out of control, that he's even got the judge going through the roof in that courtroom. The bottom line here is that this kid has established that when he shot Rosenbaum, the first victim, he was in fear for his own life. When he shot the second guy, Huber, he was in fear legitimately and reasonably of his own life. And when he shot Grosskreis, the third guy who didn't die, for which he's being charged with attempted murder, he had legitimate grounds for which to use deadly physical force. So now the question is whether or not the prosecutor can prove now, because the burden of proof has shifted beyond a reasonable doubt, that it was not self-defense. He can't do it. He can't.
Well, yesterday, Geraldo, you said that you thought that this trial might not even go to the point where you have the defendant take the witness stand, but he did, and perhaps that might have been the best thing that he could have done for himself?
It was something that I would not have recommended. Putting the defendant on the witness stand is always problematic. It's a toss of the dice. More bad things can happen than good. But this kid has stood his ground. This is a self-defense case. Did he reasonably believe that his life was in danger, and was the force he used to defend himself appropriate? And it just seems to me that the kid is dying. I mean, he's a dopey kid with a hero complex. He shouldn't have been there, shouldn't have had the AR-15 on the street and all the rest of it. But I think he walks. I tell you the truth. I don't see how they touch him on the murder cases, the most serious charges. The other one, recklessly endangering. I think there's a reasonable possibility that aside from the possession of the weapon as a minor, I think that Rittenhouse is going to go.
Go ahead, Judge.
Well, first of all, I don't think he's a dopey kid. Just because he isn't Mr. Cool from New York City doesn't make him a dopey kid. Okay, this kid practiced CPR, trained. He was a police explorer. He was a fire cadet.
17-year-old guy that takes his AR-15 to a neighboring state.
You know what? You don't know what it's like in that part of the country, and maybe you do.
I do. I live there.
You do. You live there, okay? It's a part of life for them. And you know what the charge is for possession of that weapon? 9 months. Because he's under 18.
I think that's the only one they've got.
Let's not conflate the issues here. That's a good kid. That is a kind of kid who can grow up and have a moral core.
Jesse, earlier today, the defense did move and ask for a mistrial because of the prosecutor.
Prosecutor's a joke. Not only has he exhibited prosecutorial misconduct, he coached a witness to lie and got caught cold. I've never seen anything like this guy. It's now illegal to defend yourself. If someone is assaulting you, chasing you, grabbing your weapon, shooting firearms over your head, and then aiming a revolver at your skull, this prosecutor says you can't defend yourself. That is insane. This all started with Jacob Blake. The prosecutor's office, corrupt Democrat district attorneys release a falsely edited piece of footage to make it look like this was a cold-blooded racial execution attempt, when in fact, Blake was a bad guy who was a rapist and had a knife and was a danger to the police officers and those people in that car. That all didn't even come out till later, but at that point, that inflamed such hostility in the streets. This is a very tender moment. Remember, this is just after the situation we saw in Minneapolis. So all of a sudden, people start looting and rioting for 3 straight days. Millions of dollars in damage. Politicians basically told the police to stand down. They weren't doing anything to stop this. Unfortunately, some of these small business owners had to call in help. And this guy listened to the call. I agree. Shouldn't have had a gun. Probably shouldn't have been there. But that's what happens when you treat police like garbage and politicians tell them not to defend law and order. All right, so he gets out there, clear self-defense. Everybody that sees the footage knows that. What do? Media comes out and smears this guy as a white supremacist. Joe Biden comes out during the campaign, puts out a tweet linking Donald Trump, says white supremacy, with a picture of Rittenhouse with the AR. That's slander straight up. And then this corrupt prosecutor goes out and throws a slew of nasty charges at this guy because he wants to run for DA. He's already run for DA once. This guy's got political aspirations. This is an axis of evil. This is prosecutors, the press, and politicians conspiring to create violence, create a deadly situation. And then when a deadly violent situation happens, they want a scalp of this kid. And that is really corrupt.
I just want to show that one thing. We have the sound from the judge scolding the prosecution, then we're going to go to Greg.
You reamed them.
I was astonished when you began your examination by commenting on the defendant's post-arrest silence. That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country for 40 years, 50 years. I have no idea why you would do something like that. And it gives, well, I'll leave it at that. So I don't know what you're up to. Don't get brazen with me. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that.
So that happened earlier today, Greg. And then there is just another angle on this, and that is the media coverage at the time and since. And if there's any sort of revisiting of that.
Yeah. As Jesse pointed out, the media coverage of the Jacob Blake thing led to this in so many ways, because what they did was they excused the rampant violence. They cheered the reduction of police. And what did that do? It creates a void. Who fills that void? Well, sometimes thugs do, but other times well-meaning citizens who have had enough. That is a story that is old as time, that when there is no police, you become the policeman, hence the reason why you have cops. But I learned a lot from this prosecutor. Number one, you have to let someone beat you over the head with a skateboard. If you defend yourself, that's on you. You should never shoot a guy pointing a gun at you because he hasn't shot you yet. And remember that. He made that very clear. He hasn't shot you yet. And when a guy comes at you with the gun up close, he probably won't shoot you because he could have shot you maybe 10 feet earlier. However, he probably would have had a better chance to kill you up close. But that never would have happened because he would have done it already. But the bottom line is somebody pointing a gun at you is not enough for self-defense. You must be shot first. The bottom line, and Jesse nailed it, Rittenhouse was doing a policeman's job because he could no longer rely on the state or the politicians to provide cover or protection for the police. The city was burning and going to hell unabated. So this kid, rightly or wrongly, acting probably on his own instincts, felt that he could help. I love Jeffrey Toobin's take today, where he says Rittenhouse is lucky that he's not on trial for being an idiot. And this is a guy who
Toobin?
Yeah, he should be really thinking about a concealed permit before going after Toobin. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think that what you're going to see now is if the media deliberately blocks this information from coming out, and instead, because, for example, you never would have known that Gage had pointed the gun at this guy if you'd been following the media's coverage of this. Therefore, if he is acquitted, you're going to have the same thing where people go, oh my God, white guy acquitted. He could do whatever he wants, even though he shot white people. Doesn't matter because our media is interested in the racial divide more than anything. They're going to make it about race. Rex Chapman already did it on Twitter. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have the activist class, egged on by the media, once again at CNN, saying, it is time to scream and yell. And yes, restorative justice can take the shape of looting and arson. But that's because we are now in the business of misinforming the public to create conflict.
We have the montage that our team put together of some of the media coverage. If you could roll that for us, please.
To defend the actions of a 17-year-old man who killed two protesters, one of which was armed with a skateboard. And the last time I checked, I don't think a skateboard could kill someone.
A 17-year-old kid from out of state, a boy from out of state, drives up to the state with an AR-15 around his neck, shoots and kills a couple of people, shooting wildly, running around, acting like rent-a-cop.
And it's not good that a 17-year-old vigilante, arguably a domestic terrorist, picked up a rifle, drove to a different state to shoot people.
What's his name, this guy?
So the media continue, Hellman, the media continue to I mean, basically bask in glory, I guess, is one of these things. As the judge goes forward with this request from the defense for a mistrial, is that a possibility?
You know, I don't think at this point the judge is going to grant the request for a mistrial, but I do have something to say about the judge and the way the judge acted in this case. The judge lost it, and he lost it for good reason. What you've got is the prosecution crossed the line that is as old as the Constitution, where you have a right to not incriminate yourself. And the prosecution is trying to make this kid someone who is not entitled to the right to remain silent. You know, from every TV show you ever watch, you have a right to remain silent. But this prosecutor is saying, this is the first time you talked about it since this thing happened, as if, therefore, you're not entitled to have the right to remain silent. And everyone in their mind, when they go into the jury room, is going to say, gee, I wonder. He had to think it all through and work it all through. That's a fundamental mistake by the prosecution. So when the judge says, why would you even do that? I can't figure out why you would do it. The prosecution wants to push a mistrial here because the prosecution knows they're losing. This kid is one of the best witnesses I've seen on the witness stand, without a doubt. He has an uncanny sense for what to say and when to stop.
Well, and he's fighting for his life. We're going to go back to the trial in just a moment. We're going one more comment from Geraldo and Jesse. Geraldo, you first.
The defense does not want a mistrial at this stage. The defense is winning. This is not a domestic terrorist. It is clear that the image that was built is built on false Legos. That this is a 17-year-old kid. Again, I go back, a dopey mistake, hero complex. I can save my community. I'm just like all those great people.
You just described people that join the military.
Maybe
they're usually 17.
Maybe so. Maybe
they want to help. They want to help their society.
Understand that I am announcing that I believe he's going to be acquitted.
Yeah.
The prosecution missed the mark. The prosecution tried every dirty trick they possibly could. The facts don't work for the prosecution. The kid was reasonable in his use of force and deadly force, and that's what it's about.
Geraldo, don't you think that once the DA had the drone information, had the information from the witnesses, they should have at least offered a plea here? Because the DA jumped. In 48 hours, you indict in a case like this, you don't even know the facts in 48 hours. There should have been some recognition that this was a loser case.
I wonder at what point the defense knew that they were going to put the kid on. I want to know if they led the prosecution down the primrose path to then whack them with a kid that was impenetrable from the point of view of this lame prosecutor.
We've known for a long time that the drone video has been out there.
Whether the kid was going to testify. I didn't know the kid was going to testify.
Yeah, well, obviously, you don't have to tell anybody the kid's going to.
Let's get Jesse.
Go ahead, Jesse.
The montage we showed of the press, that was so sinister. They have lost control of information in America. They used to have total control. So they used to go out on TV and lie. You look at the headlines covering this story, it's almost like they're watching a different trial than the rest of the country. We have the internet now. We see all different angles of footage. We can actually watch testimony live. And they are trying to sell a lie to their audience. Because maybe their audience isn't watching, or maybe the audience wants to be lied to.
Can I say one thing?
Because they're not interested in the truth.
One thing. We have to be careful not to be rooting for the kid. You know what I mean?
I'm rooting for justice, Geraldo.
That's what.
And they should be rooting for that, too.
Sometimes
things go sideways from their narrative. You move the narrative towards the truth, and they have not done that.
The kids shouldn't have been there, but they shouldn't have threatened him with their pistols. They shouldn't have whacked his head with the skateboard.
This is clear self-defense, Geraldo. Everybody knows that.
I am saying it is a reasonable use of force.
You know, it's funny. It's hard not to personalize this, but I keep thinking okay, they keep saying he went straight across state lines. It's actually pretty close to where he lives. It's where he works, right? It's where he works.
His father lives in Kenosha.
Yeah, so I'm thinking.
That trip
Got it. I know that. What I'm saying is, if I were 17 and my community was being destroyed.
Right.
And I was there, and I had these skills. And again, I'm 17, and I am an optimistic, hopeful person, and I'm watching my community be destroyed. Would I hide in my house? I don't know what I would do, but I would definitely be outside, and I would definitely go and see what I could do. I don't know if I would have a gun, because California, it's different, but I would have been there.
And for the most part, as he's testified and as witnesses have testified, he was putting out fires and delivering medical aid. That's what he was up to then.
That was the least believable part of his testimony.
No,
Really?
but
Well,
no,
because
they have
witnesses testified to
videotape-
the same thing.
They have
Geraldo.
videotape of him cleaning graffiti and witnesses saying that he applied medical aid to them.
And he explained, and he testified to that as well. We're going to.
In the Rittenhouse case has dismissed the trial for the day. They will restart tomorrow morning. So we'll get full coverage and Dana's show in the morning. Dana and Bill will have it.
Thank you.
I confess on a comic relief note to experiencing some joy when my least favorite Congressman Adam Schiff got spanked in broad daylight on The View, finally being forced to answer for his toxic role in promoting the totally discredited phony Trump-Russia dossier that tortured then President Trump and put the country through hell, utter hell. Watch Schiff squirm through this tough line of questioning from Morgan Ortagus.
You
The
may
president
help
also
spread Russian
sought to get-
disinformation yourself for years by promoting this. I think that's what Republicans and what people who entrusted you as the Intel Committee chair are so confused about your culpability in all of this.
Well, I completely disagree with your premise. It's one thing to say allegations should be investigated, and they were. It's another to say that we should have foreseen in advance that some people were lying to Christopher Steele, which is impossible, of course, to do. But let's not use that as a smokescreen to somehow shield Donald Trump's culpability for inviting Russia to help them in the election, which they did. None of that is undercut. None of that serious misconduct is in any way diminished by the fact that people lied to Christopher Steele.
No, I think just your credibility is.
His credibility is non-existent. This was totally BS, and it put the country judge through agony, and it tortured him, and I think made him crazy. It was awful.
It made who crazy?
President Trump.
No, I don't think it made the president crazy. It would have made me crazy, but I think he kind of held it together.
Right.
But here's the thing.
But he did hold it together.
This guy is Schiff. He's a sack of Schiff. You know, this is a guy who.
Can you say that slowly?
Sack of Schiff. This guy is constantly running around saying, I've got the evidence. I've got proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And even in his denial, he says, we can't shield Trump from inviting Russia, asking Russia to help him in the election. I mean, even when he's shown to be a liar, that he didn't have any evidence, he didn't have proof beyond a reasonable doubt, he's not willing to apologize for it. We hated each other in America. Families didn't talk to each other about Russia collusion.
Still in my family.
For the first time, and they're still talking about it, as though Russia and not China is the biggest enemy of the United States at this point. I think he's a pathetic individual, and I don't believe a word he says.
And I think, to the judge's point, that this led, remember the chain of events. This led, I think, directly to the first impeachment. This unsettled the Republic in a way that was very profound. For the third time in American history. This is not a little thing that this punk did.
Schiff ruined many Waters' Thanksgivings because he made my mom deranged. I'm serious. This really destroyed the country. That's why Trump wanted a do-over. Remember, he said if you take away the Russia hoax, I should get a do-over. We now know that the Democrats started the hoax. The Democrats paid for the dossier, and now we know the Democrats put the lies in the dossier. So Schiff comes out on The View of all places and gets his teeth kicked in. He's been doing interviews the whole year, and now all of a sudden he has to go to The View, where a guest host, Morgan Ortagus, holds his feet to the fire. That is so pathetic that it took this long for the press to ask him a straight-up question. At this point, we have to assume everything the Democrats say is erroneous. At this point, we're going to find out the election was rigged, Greg. I'm just waiting.
It was.
That's a counter narrative. But Dana, there was a suspension of decency in the way the Russia collusion probe was carried out. And there was no fair play for the president. And I really believe that William Barr saved the Republic by sticking up for Trump and saying they're going to make him nuts by continually attacking him for something he totally denies. And then when the Mueller report came out, exonerating him essentially. Still, there were the Thanksgiving dinner
Well, even
conversations.
today, I mean, even after these indictments, and even after all that we know about what's been happening with the Durham investigation, the congressman goes on. He's written a book. That's why he's on The View. Let's not forget.
Oh,
he's written a book.
what's
That's why
it
he's
called?
out. I don't know. Let's not give him any more promotion.
Yeah.
But
How I Screwed the Country.
So he wants to promote a book. He hasn't had to do a tough interview in years because he doesn't put himself in that position. He probably did not expect that from Morgan, who had the right tone. She also knows what she's talking about. And he basically said, you can't believe what I say, but still, actually, you have to believe everything that I say. He reminds me of the prosecutor in the Rittenhouse trial.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not dissimilar.
It's interesting that you say that because it discredits our institutions so profoundly. Now, you see a prosecutor lying. You see the prosecutor in the Russia collusion case making crap up, and it kind of deflates you because these were the building blocks of our republic. If you can't trust the state to prosecute honestly, if you can't trust the Justice Department to investigate honestly, I mean, what
Well, the
do we
truth
have?
is coming out, and the wheels of justice turn slowly, but also it will be exposed. I'm confident of that, and I think that if I were Hillary Clinton on my next book, I would not go and try to sell it on The View if Morgan Ortagus is the guest host.
But Greg, to your